And that's the question. Are the sacrifices worth it? And sometimes we hide the pain or the difficulties or the strains or the stresses with all the silly fun stuff, which is a salve, let's be honest. I mean, it does work to some degree. But not all stress is bad. I joke, often, when we work hard for something we love, it's called passion. When we work hard for something we don't love, it's called stress. And so I think that's what purpose and cause provide us, is they give us a reason for the sacrifice.
That actually makes sense because stress lets us feel that the thing that we are doing is important. And by making the work enjoyable, we can feel like the sacrifice is worth it.
This got me thinking a lot about the guests that I have sit here and also my own story, where sometimes I think people's why, or the thing that's been driving them, is in fact some kind of trauma or insecurity. I think because you sit here with people in there, whether it's Israel Adesanya, the UFC champion, who's the current maybe world's best UFC fighter. He was battered and bullied as a kid, being the only black kid in his school in New Zealand. And so it's no coincidence that he strived to be this fighter. And in fact, when he won the UFC title, the next day he was depressed and he went to therapy. That's made me question whether like our whys can sometimes be trauma or insecurity driven as opposed to being intentional and I don't know.
Funny thing is, that's also how most superhero stories work. The main character always dealt with a form of loss or trauma in their childhood, and as an adult, they want to save others.
You may not tell a single lie for the next 48 hours. I mean, nothing. And you'll be amazed how difficult it is. You'll be amazed how many little white lies we tell. Like, the waiter comes over, and 5 minutes before you're saying, oh, this food is so salty. And the waiter comes and goes, how's everything? You go, it's fine. Everything's fine. Yeah, thank you. It's fine. That is a lie, right? Now, you don't have to be mean. There's nothing that says truth has to be brutal. It just has to be true. Try for the next 48 hours and see how hard it is not to tell a single lie.
Everyone's going to be walking around asking each other what they think of each other.
That's actually true. We tell white lies to others so as to not hurt their feelings, but it could cause damage in our relationships in the long term.
Now, but I do love ideas, and I love dissecting ideas and understanding ideas, and I really love understanding why things work. I am a little kid at heart. I want to know why, not as a noun, as I popularized it with start with why, but as a question. Like, why is it that way? I love that question. It is a little kid question, and for some reason as adults, we stop asking and started just blindly accepting. And that doesn't mean I have to be rebellious in the question. It's not an accusation, like, why are you doing it that way? It's genuine curiosity, like, why does it work that way? And I love that.
I also believe that this inability to ask why is what makes it so hard for us to change society for the better.
So like, we're not inspired against something. We're not inspired to stop something. We're inspired to build something or create something or advance something. Though it may have been born out of trauma, there's usually a silver lining that gives us that cause. Especially trauma that happens in the middle of our lives. September 11th is often looked to as, people found purpose. We are who we are. Like I said, we're fully formed by the experiences we have when we're young, at a pretty young age. And now the opportunity life presents us is to make decisions that either keeps us in balance with who we really are or not. And I think one of the reasons most of us feel discomfort or don't feel ourselves or don't know who we are is because we're making decisions that are inconsistent with that true cause, with that why.
I think that's why people face so much uncertainty as they transition into adulthood, because they face all these experiences that are so different compared to when they were young.
But the feedback I was getting from the 1,000 people that were listening to this was deep. It was profound and it was intense.
And it said things like?
They said things like, I can relate to that. That's really helped me solve this problem I've had. You've made me feel, a big one we get is, you've made me feel like I'm not alone. And then if I go to the last, if I go to more recent times, I quit when I left my job and I was now no longer needed to do anything for money anymore in my life. When I took stock of, because there was about a 6 month or a 1 year gap in this podcast, which is when I was leaving my job. And I took stock of my life and thought about the things I want to do for the rest of my life. And this was one of the things that seemed to touch all bases. It was enjoyable for myself. I get to sit and learn from people like yourself. It feels like, as you said, it's like a service to others, a really profound one, probably the greatest service I feel like I can do to the external world.
And I think that's why if you don't want to go into a traditional 9 to 5 job, you don't want to follow the conventional path, it's best when you have others with you.
And so they're very purposeless. And I see this in Broadway performers who set their whole life to be on the West End or be on Broadway. You know, every class, every tap dancing class, every singing class, they make it, they get there, and then depression, or at least malaise. Or senior executive, same thing. If I just make $1 million, you know, if I just become a millionaire, then I'll feel. And the problem with all of those things is, as I said before, they are selfish. It is your goal for your reasons, which is not fulfilling for any social animal, for any human being. You know, our sense of joy and fulfillment and love and purpose comes from our ability to serve another human being. Have a child, tell me how your life changes. Fall in love, tell me how your life changes.
That makes sense because at the end of the day, human beings are social creatures. We are hardwired to live in groups and we derive our purpose from helping each other.
You go to shops because it's fun. You go to shops to try stuff on. You go to shops because it's an activity, because our hunter-gatherer instincts, we like foraging and looking for things. It's entertainment. We enjoy the service aspect, you know? It's with our friends. Sometimes it's not about the shops at all. It's just a place, something to do with our friends. It plays a different role. And the smart retailers know that.
And for some people, going shopping is just a way for them to kill time.
You meet people sometimes who have like one of what I consider to be the holy trinity of like affecting change as an orator. Your delivery in terms of when you deliver ideas, the way you kind of like punctuate sentences and the tone of it keeps people incredibly engaged. And then the circuitous way in which you deliver a point as well makes it incredibly engaging from a storytelling perspective. And then the wisdom or the simple idea that underpins it that we can understand.
Yeah.
But when you ask them to make that complex math idea relevant and resonant in my own life, it's impossible. Yeah. But you're able to do that. And that's why all the content you put out online and on your YouTube channels and Instagram is so necessary. We have a closing tradition on this podcast where the last guest asks a question for the next guest.
Oh, cool.
So they wrote it in this diary. They don't know who they're writing it for.
Oh, I love that.
And when you write your question, you also won't know who you're writing it for.
Honestly, that is one of the smartest ways for one to impart wisdom on others.